A lot of people guessed that. Even in my director session, my director asked if the mark was real. And I said, the mark? You mean my mole?
Mark.
I was like, what do you mean the mark? I literally didn't know what he was talking about for like 2 minutes. I was like, my tattoo? Like,
The mark.
I was like, what is he talking about? I need a job. What do I have to say right now?
Yeah.
And then I got it, and I was like, no, I could never do that because I touched my face.
And then she had
too
to get
much.
one permanently installed.
Have you ever stopped to think about how Wayfair was so certain that Stephanie Jones was behind causing chaos and that Leslie Sloan was involved in planting stories to damage Justin's reputation? Or have you ever questioned whether Blake and Ryan had a major fallout the day or possibly the day after Wayfair publicly stated they wouldn't issue a statement taking responsibility for the online backlash that Blake and Ryan faced? Well, recently, new evidence came to light, revealing text messages and a recorded phone call that shed light on the situation. These texts reveal what took place on the Ethereum platform when Stephanie Jones communicated with and responded to the Daily Mail. They also reveal a series of text messages from the 13th, which came the day after Wayfair refused to release a statement about the negative press Blake and Ryan received. In these texts, Leslie Sloan appears to have provided a story to The Hollywood Reporter, and further investigation shows that Stephanie Jones had previously provided misleading deposition testimony. She tried to claim that Melissa Nathan was the one who contacted The Hollywood Reporter to share a story about herself being hired, and that it was all for her business interests. However, this claim is far from the truth. Ryan and Blake are desperately trying to keep the events from July and August hidden from the public eye, making it clear that Ryan was at the center of orchestrating the media attacks. He's the one driving the narrative and using Leslie to work against Baldoni by manipulating the press. It's now becoming evident that Ryan and Leslie are actively using media outlets such as The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, People magazine, and the Daily Mail to plant and spread damaging stories about Justin. At this point, it's well known that Justin Baldoni has been the target of a smear campaign for years. The goal has been to frame him as an unhinged predator, with Ryan Reynolds particularly determined to make this narrative stick, likely to justify his own questionable actions. Recently, Stephanie Jones released some documents, as did Wayfair, and these documents relate to Wayfair's opposition to Stephanie's attempt to amend her complaint. One of the allegations in her complaint is that Jamie illegally violated wiretapping laws in Illinois. However, Wayfair argues that Stephanie spoke to them about the call, explaining exactly what happened during it. They also produced text messages from the time of the call, confirming that Stephanie was in contact with others while it was happening, and all of this related to her communication with the Daily Mail. Stephanie doesn't want this information to be made public, which could be why she's attempting to amend her complaint. She might not have been aware of these details until they came to light during discovery. It's clear that this evidence is being used strategically. Wayfair is claiming that she can't claim any damages because she wasn't in Illinois, and they argue that the law she's referencing isn't applicable to her case. The judge will eventually decide whether to allow her to amend her complaint, but what matters most right now is the evidence that has been released. From the released texts, we can see that Stephanie Jones was involved in a lot more than she initially let on. She was copied on emails that show she was kept informed about all communications. For her to pretend that she was unaware of what was happening is now hard to believe. One of the texts she sent reads, "Jen tried to reach you. Please give me a call. Thanks." She then mentions that Lillian from the Daily Mail had been helpful in the past. Jen responds by saying they're going through security and checking luggage, mentioning that Melissa's team is already involved in the situation. Stephanie confirms this and says she'll call. A few minutes later, Jaime intervenes, warning that no one should contact the Daily Mail yet because Melissa is handling the situation. Stephanie, however, admits that she had already emailed and was playing phone tag with the reporter, further revealing her involvement. In these texts, Jaime expresses confusion over why anyone would reach out to the Daily Mail without first consulting the team. He stresses the importance of everyone being aligned before taking any action. These exchanges further prove that there's more to this story than what has been publicly disclosed, and the web of deceit and manipulation is much deeper than initially thought. The situation is far from simple, and the truth behind the media campaigns continues to unravel. At 11:55 a.m., Jamie sends a message that suggests things are escalating. Just 5 minutes later, Stephanie Jones responds saying, "I acknowledged receipt to Lillian and told her I'd get back to her, which is part of our job. No one should be contacting the media except for Jones Works, as we're the agency of record. I'm not sure how Melissa got involved because we're not included in those discussions, though we should be." It's clear from Stephanie's message that she's not pleased with Melissa's involvement in the situation. Jamie then sends a message 15 minutes later saying, "I'm hearing from Sony that someone named Stephanie Jones reached out to the Daily Mail, blaming Blake for this, and now it's escalated. We're purposely not responding to anything so we don't make it worse, but now this has made things worse. Everyone needs to stand down unless I'm aware of any actions. I don't care who is supposed to do what, but the strategy is only being run by me. I need everyone to understand that." Jamie is clearly stating that no one should speak to the media and only he should make decisions regarding the strategy. However, Stephanie replies saying, "I didn't speak to the Daily Mail, so I know this isn't true." But earlier, she had admitted to acknowledging receipt of an email from Lillian and said she would contact her. This contradiction leaves Jamie confused, and he tells Stephanie that word came from Sony about her communication with the Daily Mail. Stephanie denies it, even though she had previously acknowledged the contact and admitted to playing phone tag with Lillian. She questions who at Sony said this and insists that she would never blame Blake for anything. She says, "I'll contact Sony's communications department, as I know this isn't true." Jamie, frustrated, insists, "Do not contact anyone at all right now. I need to be very direct about this. I don't want anyone messaging anyone right now." He reiterates that he hasn't spoken to the Daily Mail, and he doesn't believe that anyone at Sony said that she escalated the issue. He says he's going to contact them directly. Despite this, Stephanie is still not backing down, saying that she hasn't spoken to anyone at the Daily Mail or Sony. She also claims her main goal has always been to protect Justin and that she was not aware Melissa was involved in this situation. She maintains that she simply forwarded the Daily Mail email to the team immediately after receiving it. Later, at 4:18 p.m., she receives another inquiry, and she forwards it to her team within minutes. She also says she will call them, but her actions seem contradictory. At 6:41 p.m., Stephanie acknowledges seeing a message, though she was at dinner. She then asked if Melissa had contacted the Daily Mail, and soon after, an article from the Daily Mail is published. Stephanie says, "Looks like it hit 3 hours ago, which likely triggered People magazine to inquire with us. Nothing in the article is from an insider, and all the quotes are attributed to specific social media posts our team sent Janelle earlier." As the situation unfolds, Stephanie continues to deny any involvement with the media, but her messages indicate otherwise. Jenny, a part of the team, adds, "This has been changing minute by minute. We went from monitoring and scenario planning yesterday to having off-the-record conversations with outlets like the Today Show since Justin was live on air, and they were planning to ask about fan theories. The New York Post has been digging into this since last week, as Justin hasn't been involved in any of the promo for the junket." Jenny continues, "Thanks to Melissa's relationship, we've kept the media at bay, assuring them that neither we nor Blake's team would respond to any media inquiries. Unfortunately, the Daily Mail has told Sony that someone from Justin's camp contacted them and provided comments, which has caused problems with Blake's team. To be fully transparent, Sony and Blake's team have said it was you who called the Daily Mail and gave them information. Sony contacted us and confirmed this. For now, we'll continue compiling incoming requests and sharing them with Melissa's team who are monitoring the situation. Meanwhile, the junket continues, and the screening is tonight. I also have a call scheduled with Blake's team to smooth things over and ensure that her side isn't upset further." This situation has become increasingly complicated, with Stephanie's messages contradicting each other and media outlets continuing to get involved. It's clear that the plan is to control the narrative, but the confusion and miscommunication are causing more issues for everyone involved. The situation escalated quickly, with the team working hard to manage the crisis. They received assurances from others involved that they also wanted the issue to be resolved. The team then began discussing the inquiries they had received, including one from People magazine. However, Stephanie wasn't happy with the response. About 20 minutes later, she sent a message saying, "I didn't speak to Daily Mail or anyone else for that matter," which contradicted her earlier admission that she had been in contact with the Daily Mail. She went on to claim that Daily Mail didn't tell Sony that she called them. Instead, she suggested the claim was based on assumptions. She stated that Josh was aware of what was happening and that Leslie Sloan might have wrongly thought the issue was coming from just inside their team. She explained that the Daily Mail article was only about 3 social media posts that Henry had sent earlier that morning. Stephanie was unaware of those posts until Daily Mail inquired about them, and she wanted to align on a communications plan. She emphasized that she needed to be included in any media communication and planning. Jen responded, stating that they were only communicating what they had been told by Sony and that they had been in sync with the social media team. Stephanie, still frustrated, insisted that Leslie never communicated with Sony or the Daily Mail. She repeatedly asked who at Sony had shared the information with them. She also offered to contact Leslie and set up a call to clarify things. Jen explained that it wasn't Leslie, but rather Danny at Sony who had reached out to her. Stephanie continued to question why Josh had assumed she was the one who had spoken to the Daily Mail. She found it strange that as soon as their social team had sent the 3 TikTok posts, Daily Mail had covered quotes from all of them within an hour. Stephanie was trying to clear her name, but her repeated contradictions were becoming more evident. She tried to get a call scheduled with Leslie, but Jamie firmly instructed that no one should contact Leslie. He was very clear about wanting the team to discuss things internally before representing Wayfair or Justin in any way. Despite the repeated instructions, Stephanie continued to press for clarity and to take charge of the situation. She insisted on calling Danny to clear up what had happened, and she asked Jen to cancel any planned calls with Leslie. Stephanie also made a point to clarify that the New York Post had not sent any inquiries about Justin, despite rumors to the contrary. At the same time, the media storm continued to grow. The Daily Mail had already reached out, and it was clear that Stephanie had been in contact with them, despite her denials. Blake's team was upset, and the situation was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Stephanie's denial of her involvement was growing more apparent as others in the team questioned her motives and the way she was handling the situation. The narrative that Stephanie had started to spin was now clearly falling apart. She had tried to distance herself from the situation, but it was obvious that her communications had contributed to the issue. In the meantime, new stories were being planted in the media, including one by Leslie that implicated Justin in a potential dispute over the sequel of a film. This was followed by a story about Justin hiring a crisis PR team, furthering the narrative that he was involved in a scandal. By the 13th, after the situation had completely blown up, more stories were being planted to deflect blame. The media were now filled with competing narratives, and the entire situation was spiraling out of control. Leslie's role in planting these stories became more evident, and it was clear that she was trying to push the narrative that Justin was at fault. The damage was done, and the situation was now firmly out of their hands. Stephanie, despite her denials, had played a key role in triggering this crisis, and the fallout from her actions was still unfolding. Do you think this situation makes him look guilty? Honestly, I don't mean anything against you at all, but she said, honestly, no. Everyone hires crisis management when needed. Leslie is the crisis expert. If it wasn't me handling it, whoever they hired would have mentioned it too as a tactic. Fans don't really pay attention to trade news anyway. Okay, I agree. That's what I think too, but I just wanted to hear your opinion on it. As soon as a Hollywood reporter plants the story, which, by the way, Leslie is behind, they start getting a lot of messages from Variety. They've seen the article and now they want to comment. Shortly after, it turns into a breaking news story saying that Justin hired a crisis management team. Then she says, now I'm worried about what Steph is going to say. Not that they care, but she's going to try to use this in some way. She definitely will, but let's compare stories when B drops. Stephanie then texts Tara and shares her message. Tara passes it on to Jen, who responds, I was waiting for this. The real story here is that Leslie, Blake's rep, planted this to weaponize the fact that we hired crisis management. As for how we respond, I'll defer to you, but I would suggest saying something like, yes, Janie and the team are aware of this. We also understand that this was reduced to a straightforward announcement about her being retained during the crisis. It's a planted story along those lines. It's also almost 2:30 a.m. where she is. Then they bring up a story that's going to drop about her later in the week. If you hadn't made this worse, we wouldn't be in this bad situation. The whole issue started with Stephanie escalating everything on the Ethereum platform. After that, everything got out of control. Leslie started planting stories and going after Melissa and the crisis management team, trying to imply that Justin is a sexual predator and abuser, especially because the crisis team also worked with Johnny Depp. They start receiving messages from Entertainment Weekly, the New York Post, and others. Then Melissa gets on the phone with Leslie, and the text messages stop. Regardless of what Stephanie Jones says or how Leslie Sloan and Ryan Reynolds try to spin the story, it's clear that Stephanie started everything. She 100% spoke with the Daily Mail and then lied about it. She even accused Jen of being dishonest, trying to make her look like a liar. Then, because of the chaos she caused by responding to the Daily Mail, Leslie went into full damage control mode. She started planting stories and attacking Melissa and the crisis team, pushing the narrative that Justin was a sexual predator and abuser, especially because the crisis team also worked with Johnny Depp. Blake and Ryan refused to release a statement, and within 12 hours of saying no, the gloves were off. The story started spreading about Melissa and Justin, implying that he was guilty of terrible things. Articles from the Daily Mail, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and People magazine all came out one after the other. It felt like a well-coordinated attack, and it didn't stop. It was almost like they tested the waters. They were told no, and then they went into full-on attack mode. It's an insane strategy. If you don't get what you want, you destroy the person's reputation in the press. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively have been acting like absolute psychopaths in this situation. It's a shocking and manipulative approach. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and click the bell so you never miss an update.